You are watching KBC Channel 1. I'm Regina Manyara, and the conversation is around impact of innovation and technology. To take us through this conversation is none other than Kennedy Oyugi, an agricultural economist at Africa Harvest Biotech Foundation. Thank you, sir, for your time.
Thank you, Regina.
Now, let's start off with an update on the GMO adoption in the country. Where are we at?
Thank you. As I said, my name is Kennedy Oyugi, working with the Africa Harvest. And as much as at Africa Harvest we're currently not having GMO varieties in the field, I want to say that as an organization, we are a science-driven organization, and we believe that GMOs, like any other technology, has an important role to play in enhancing our food security situation and even fighting poverty situation in the country. So in terms of where we are, the technology has been applied on different crops and value chains. And one of the crops where we moved ahead of others was in cotton, and we had varieties approved for that, which can be able now to be taken to the farmers, and farmers can be able to actually utilize the benefits. So cotton is an available GMO product. Maize has been under trials and of course aimed at addressing some of the key challenges that the crop faces, like fighting stem borers, which is a menace in some parts of the country. So that is also in the pipeline. We have other important crops like cassava, which also are benefiting from that technology in terms of making them better adapted to our areas in terms of the diseases that we face as a country and even as a region. So we have those three key crops in the value chain. Cotton in the farmer's field, maize almost there, and cassava almost there. So we believe that the three can be able to deliver a lot of benefits to the country. Yes.
Now, as those field trials are ongoing, maize and cassava, as you mentioned, there's a big question. The viability of GMOs in Kenya. These trials are ongoing, but then, for instance, agriculture practice is largely small scale in the country. And we understand that GMOs, there's need to avoid pollination. Given our current, specs as it is, how will we manage that, to avoid cross-pollination? I mean, we have shrinkage of land under agriculture use. How do we balance that?
First of all, Regina, I would like to say that this perception that GMO is a strange thing that has to be separated overly from others is wrong. Wrong because there's no danger that the GMO poses to the environment or to the other varieties which are non-GMOs. But for people who like to avoid a situation where one variety has a mix of the other one, there are standard measures which can be used to be able to address that. One of them is a staggered kind of planting, such that when one variety is, maybe GMO is flowering, the other non-GMO has already done flowering and has already passed that stage. Secondly, there are some distance that are allowed, and which I see ourselves as a country keeping, even when we're growing in conventional, actually when we're growing in GMOs, conventional varieties. Because even within these varieties, we always have different varieties even gotten from different companies, and we want to separate them. We do that even in our seeds. So it's not a strange thing that is expected that now will happen when people embrace GMOs. Secondly, crops like cassava. The chances that a GMO cassava variety will cross to the non-GMO cassava are almost nil, because they don't cross-pollinate. We are using the tubers.
The tubers, yes. So actually the crops vary.
Yeah, those risks are very limited, especially if you compare them to the benefits that we're expecting from these varieties. So this is a technology that's compatible with our systems.
Now, It is critics who are still, adamant that we do not need to have, or rather adopt to GMOs in the country, have said that the cost of these GMO seeds will be far removed from a majority of Kenyans, more expensive.
It will be dangerous for us to marginalize other people, say this one cannot access GMOs, and also marginalize them against the benefits of GMOs, instead of working on how do we ensure that they access the improved varieties, the GMOs, if where necessary, so that they can also benefit from the advantages that these bring about. And in this country, we are buying seeds, we are buying, we are paying for labor, we are paying for other forms of agricultural inputs, including fertilizer. So, and the cost of seed here may not be the major. If you do the analysis, you realize that cost of seed in most of these situations, among maybe labor and other forms of capital, fertilizer, will be a small proportion compared to the others. So it will be a very malicious kind of agenda to exclude other people from the benefits of these new technologies on the basis that we should block it, people not afford it. Let's bring it on the table. Let's enhance our access. For me, I believe the way we can subsidize access to fertilizer, the way we can subsidize access to other seeds, should be the same way you can subsidize access to other forms of inputs. If we are serious as a country and we are really out to get the best out of agriculture, because we claim to be an agricultural country.
There's a concern on the sustainability of these indigenous conventional seeds. What's your take on that?
That concern may lack in scientific evidence, because we can't rule out indigenous varieties, indigenous technologies, because in any case we expect that they are better adapted to our environments. So new technologies are coming to supplement what's there. New technologies are coming to improve some aspects of what maybe was lacking in the indigenous technologies, but it will be wrong in my view, and as Africa Harvest, to say that our varieties, especially for resilient crops like millets, sorghum, the cassava, it would be wrong to imagine that now the indigenous ones are bad. And what we're doing as Africa Harvest, we are promoting this using the best agronomic practices, and we are seeing great improvements. So sometimes it's not because our indigenous varieties, technologies have failed, but it's because sometimes there have been a gap in terms of how best do we propagate, manage, and utilize these indigenous technologies. And when we are bringing when we bridge that gap with even the partners we are working with, the likes of ICRISAT, we bring in improved technologies, we bring in better agronomic practices, we are seeing enormous changes, and people are embracing it.
Now, critics have also come up and termed that the fact that we are gravitating towards GMO technology, that at some point it may lead to food dependency, because a majority of the players in this particular GMO field are global multinationals.
Of course, no one wants to have such kind of a dependence on an entity that is outside the boundaries of the nation. And so the idea that we'll be dependent on multinationals, to me, I don't think it's right, because it's a market force. If we realize that the multinationals are taking advantage of us, we have the right to use our own technologies, and we have facilities in the country which are preserving our indigenous varieties. We have a functional gene bank where if anybody thought of now mistreating Kenyans because maybe it's the supply of A or B, then we have our own stocks that we can go back to. Again, we are not, I don't think we are going to find a situation where just over a day we have all changed, we have lost everything. I don't see that happening, because even with hybrids, they have been with us here for many years. But we still have other technologies, people who still plant varieties that are not hybrids. So to me, I don't think that is a concern that should worry me. All concerns to me are valid. We need just to see where are they coming from, what are the mitigation measures. And for us, we have enough stocks not to worry about depending on any country. If anything, actually, we're importing. So I'd rather we produce from here than importing from food from outside the country. Yeah.
Okay. So then, what would you say is the current status in as far as consumption is concerned of indigenous foods varieties, the mrenda, the mchicha, because we saw a spike during the COVID-19 situation where people gravitated towards traditional?
To me, I don't think it has changed. In fact, people have realized it helped us in a way to know that the traditional, the indigenous crops that we have are still as nutritious, as beneficial as they were. And what we are seeing actually is that even you go to a restaurant and people are going for ugali made of sorghum, others are looking for ugali made of millet. So I think the trend is still supporting the indigenous varieties. In fact, for me, is how now do we ensure that we have enough seed for the indigenous crops? How do we ensure that we look at any constraint that these indigenous crops have been facing, like areas of productivity, and enhance it through research? And I think that's one area where, as Africa Harvest and partners, we are trying to ensure that we deploy the best of the varieties that we have, especially this for the crops like sorghum, millet, groundnuts, to make sure that we are at a level where we can avail and meet the demand that's now increasing. And I want to confirm here that demand for the indigenous crops is increasing because people have realized it is nutritious. People have realized it's more adapted. Like now we are having situations where we are looking at climate change issues. We are looking for what can work within the situation, the changing situation. And we are realizing that these indigenous crops could give us a better chance of having a good harvest.
Yeah. Now, there's been a trend of having fortified foods. You find your maize is mixed up maybe with your sorghum, with your millet, and we have it as uji. That's a trend that is catching up. Does it speak to focus on nutri-health? Or are we looking at cost, of food, now that you're talking about the cost of living?
To me, it's both.
Both?
Yeah, because this blending sometimes aims at introducing something which maybe one type of crop may not have. Sometimes even it's just color. Other people may not want their uji so dark. So they may throw in some cassava or some maize or some sorghum. And as you do that, you are also enhancing the nutritional value because you're bringing in maybe some minerals which one crop lacked.
Okay.
But again, as we now enhance our production of these indigenous crops, they may also become more available, more affordable. And so that blending may also be part of reducing the cost and making the food more available in terms of affordability, which contributes towards our food security situation.
Now, the fact is, the agricultural value chain is old. When I say old, I'm talking about those who own the land are our grandfathers, if not fathers. So then how do we incentivize the agricultural value chain to be more attractive as a venture and maybe even a career for the youth, because they are the ones we're talking about in as far as future is concerned?
Thank you. And that's very important, Regina, because the statistics show us that our country is largely youth and youth-driven. And we're agricultural. Then we see here a disconnect where we're agricultural, we have a lot of youth, but youth are not in agriculture. A very worrying situation. And that's why with some of our partners, actually currently Africa Harvest, we are implementing a project which seeks to bring on board over 120,000 youth, 70% of whom will be female are actually are female. That's what we are working on. And so far we have already onboarded currently almost 70,000 or something thereabout youth, people who are between 18 and 35 years. And what we are realizing, which people maybe are yet understand because it's a new trend, is that when you tell our youth that there's money here and you can demonstrate properly in terms of figures that if you plant this amount of land, put it under sorghum, you can be able to sell and get this. The youth are taking it very positively because no one wants to engage in some of these dirty tricks of getting money. So if you show them that there's money here and you can prove it, then they are willing to join. And one thing that has frustrated the youth previously is lack of reliable markets. We realized that as Africa Harvest, and now in all our programming, we have to move all the way using the whole value chain approach from where to get the quality inputs, how can deliver the best training in terms of agronomic practices, and the market linkages, including post-harvest handling. And once you assure the youth that there's a market, the youth are coming into agriculture. When we started the project like 2 years ago, it was a struggle. Youth would watch from a periphery. In fact, we had to recruit older men to stabilize the youth groups. But now what we are seeing, the youth, once they have seen their fellows earn income the previous 2 harvests, they are looking for the project coordinators at county level. In fact, this is one thing that if we had, and we're hoping to have soon enough resources, we'll spread in all the 47 counties. Currently, we are in about 14 counties, but our aspiration is to cover the whole country, if not spread in the region, because it is working.
How do we take advantage of early warning systems, you know, to ensure sustainability of food production as we come to a close?
Very important. And this early warning system, to me, I want to tie it to what we are saying, this change in climate. And one of the key changes we are seeing is that our weather patterns are changing. They are becoming unpredictable. And so we have a role, and a very important one, as all stakeholders in agriculture, to make sure that we work with our meteorological departments, for example, to give us timely information, reliable information on how our weather patterns are going to look maybe in the next 12 months. That will make us even avail the right varieties that match what we're expecting. Because things have changed, we can't use the February, March, April rain the way they were. We can't rely on short rains the way we were. We need to be informed by new technologies, by new systems, what we are calling the early warning systems. Not just warning, I could call them early information systems, so that we are informed, not just scared and warned and maybe, but informed of the right things to do. Because once we have the information, we can be able to make better use of it, advise the farmers correctly, plan even in terms of infrastructure, like the water that we are losing today. This is water which, if we utilize our early information system well, prepared to tap it, it will have seen us through the next anticipated drought. And so this other fluctuation that we are going to see, definitely we are going to see. Today we have enough, tomorrow we have little. We have really moderated them, ironed them out, and be able to have a country which 12 months in a year, we have reliable supplies of water in a way that can even assure us food security. So we need to invest in our early warning system, as you said, but not just this information. We now exploit that by advising farmers, availing the right varieties, putting in place the right infrastructure in terms of dams, or even water harvesting, basic water harvesting strategies, like even preparing your farm in a way that it can tap some of the water, so that, one, you have it next season, and two, it doesn't destroy your crop as it moves around. For produce, good markets for inputs, then transfer of knowledge in terms of good agricultural practices, we should be good.
Aha, very well said. That is our guest, Kennedy Oyugi, an agricultural economist from Africa Harvest Biotech Foundation, and giving his thoughts on where we are in as far as innovation and technology on the agriculture value chain, the emerging trends, and what needs to be done to attain food security. You're still watching KBC Channel 1. I'm Regina Manyara.